Good evening, everybody. There's this lovely lull when we are waiting for everybody to join on the audio. So forgive the brief wait here. I know you're all anxious to get into our programming this evening, as it were, our fantastic conversations between the two authors we have tonight. Give everybody a chance to log in there. I think we are all set. So good evening, everyone. My name is Jenny Worley-Hemmeter, and I am the Director of Events for Anderson's Bookshops. We'd just like to take a moment to thank you for joining us tonight to talk books with us. For those of you who aren't familiar with us, Anderson's is an independent bookstore just outside of Chicago. We've been run and owned by the Anderson family for going on 6 generations now, which makes us the oldest single-family run bookseller in the country. And if you follow us on social media, you may have seen our announcement this week. We're actually now a fully woman-owned company. Becky Anderson has taken on the role of sole owner of the business, as her 2 brothers that she co-owned it with have retired. So we're kind of excited about that this week as well. But we've been in this community in Naperville, our store in Downers Grove, and other places throughout the area in our communities for a long time. And of course, COVID has put us all in a different place, but events and your participation at these events help us see the light at the end of the tunnel, know that there are still ways that we can support these amazing authors and get their messages out into the world. So we just like to take a moment to say thank you for that. We are doing additional events, virtual so far this year. We'll kind of see how things go and when we can to make it safe to come back in for live events, but lots of other things going on. So follow us on our website or our social media. Just a couple other things in the next 2 weeks. Ginger Z, Charles Shields discussing his book about Lorraine Hansberry, Thridy Umrigar, and Noah Hawley. Just a couple of things coming up. And Isabel Allende actually also at the end of the month. So lots of stuff happening. But I know that you are here to talk about Luvvie and Professional Troublemaker. First, I just want to let you know that an accessibility for accessibility issue, the live transcript feature has been turned on. So if you'd like subtitles or a full transcript as provided by Zoom, you can choose that using the live transcript or the CC button at the bottom of your own screen. But tonight we are so happy to be celebrating who we consider a bit of a local author to us, the paperback release of Professional Troublemaker, the Fear Fighter Manual by Luvvie Ajayi Jones. But joining us tonight, first of all, to moderate the conversation is Adam Grant, an organizational psychologist and best-selling author who helps people find meaning and motivation at work. He has been Wharton's top-rated professor for 7 straight years. As an organizational psychologist, he is a leading expert on how we can find motivation and meaning and live more generous and creative lives. He is the #1 New York Times best-selling author of 5 books that have sold millions of copies and have been translated into 35 languages. And then, of course, our featured author tonight, Luvvie Ajayi Jones, is an award-winning author, podcast host, and speaker who thrives at the intersection of humor, media, and justice. She's the author of the New York Times bestseller, I'm Judging You, the Do Better Manual. She runs her own social platform and app called Love Nation, which is a safe space in a dumpster fire world. I love that. Her love language is shoes, and her battery food is jollof. So hello to both of you, to Luvvie and to Adam. Thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Hello. I'm trying to come back on, but it's not letting me come back on for some reason.
Same here.
Here we go.
We can be audio only if you want.
No, we need your faces. There is Adam and Luvvie. We can get you back here too. We're letting folks in, lots of folks joining us here too. Should be able to start video, Luvvie. Let me know if you're having any issues there.
We go.
There we are.
She
Hey,
is.
Hello.
Hello. Thank you both so much for joining us. We really appreciate you being with us tonight.
Well,
Glad to be here.
thank you for having us. Love supporting local bookstores and especially women-owned businesses. And thanks to everyone tonight for coming out to support books, which I think are the best thing that we have in a pandemic world and in a regular world too.
Indeed. Well, I'm going to turn it over to you guys.
Great. Thank you, Jenny. So Luvvie, happy 2022. It's wonderful to see you.
Yes, indeed. It's been too long.
Way too long. Congratulations. This was one of the few good things to come out of 2021, as far as I'm concerned.
I'll take it because, yes, it was a dumpster fire year.
So let me just start by saying you gave some advice last year, which I took. I took it to heart. You said that everyone needs a Nigerian friend. So I went out and I got myself a Nigerian friend. And let me just tell you, all that she's brought into my life is brilliant ideas and energy and inspiration and humor. Really, is that all you can do for me, Luvvie? Come on.
Listen, I mean, look, Nigerians are late. We do bring some magic into your life. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna put some flavor in Adam's life.
I needed it. Well, I think I'm a little bit nervous about this conversation because I feel like I'm gonna get judged for not being enough of a troublemaker. But let me just start by asking you, looking back on the past year, how did you make trouble? And what in the world does it mean to be a professional troublemaker?
Oh my gosh, how did I make trouble this last year? I think I just shared my journey in the pandemic and trying to be a person of impact. I was really honest about, the fact that certain days you were just like, what is happening in the world? I was honest about, even though we are thought leaders and we're visible, that our lives are not sans problems, and because I think professional troublemakers are ultimately people who use honesty as a tool, who speak truth to power, even when it's difficult. So I think this last year, how I made trouble was honestly by just living out loud, even when we didn't know what the days were going to look like, what the news was going to have, whatever the news stats were.
I think you did that and much, much more. So honesty is the name of the game. Yeah. Why is it so hard for people to make professional trouble?
Because I think we're all people pleasers. Even the troublemakers are people pleasers, where we want to make decisions that are going to make people be more amicable about us, who, we want people to go, okay, I do like her. She's very easy to get along with. We want people to not like us. So sometimes we swallow back the honesty to do that. Sometimes we will choose somebody else's thoughts about who we are over our own, simply for the fact that we don't want to shake the table. And I'm always asking us to push back against it, because then we'll wake up, be 37, 38, 39, 40, 55, and realize that we spent our whole lives betraying ourselves and not being honest because we didn't want to ruffle feathers. So I really do think it's important to prioritize it.
I think so too. And I want to talk about the how. So one of the things that I just realized, and you're always several steps ahead of all of us, so it took me a while to figure this out, but it finally clicked as I was preparing for this conversation that your strategy for dealing with the people-pleasing problem is you wrote a book about professional troublemaking, and now everyone expects you to do it. So it would almost be disappointing if you didn't challenge people. For the rest of us, how do we get there? How do we get past the people-pleasing and to the truth-telling?
That's actually a great point of I actually tell people what page I'm on. I'm very open about letting people know where I stand, what my thoughts are, what my boundaries are. So then they don't expect something else from me. They expect me from me. I want people to expect me from me, as opposed to somebody else. So yes, I wrote the I'm Judging You book, and then I wrote Professional Troublemaker book. So I'm training people to expect me from me. For everybody else, I think we can do the same. Because we spend so much time people pleasing and trying to be nice, we end up not telling people who we really are. We end up showing up as representatives of ourselves and then wondering why everyone gets us wrong. People still get me wrong, and I'm still constantly telling them who I am. So I think for the rest of us, what we have to do is just know that you gotta train people to expect you from you. And you and I have talked about branding, and you talk about how a lot of people use branding as a buzzword and it turns you into a robot. I see branding more of you being consistent with who you are so other people can be clear about that too. So as opposed to it turning you into this mechanical person who has a strategy about your content and who wants to show up a particular way, I look at branding as really you showing up as yourself. So then people start knowing who you are. And then those things actually are cohesive.
I love that. I think it's almost the polar opposite of what I see many people do when they think they're building a personal brand, which is, okay, I've got to make myself into this perfect, shiny product that's carefully packaged and tailored to create a certain kind of image. And they're completely focused on how the audience perceives them, as opposed to starting inward with what are the values that I want to live by. And if I do that, then I'll project them. And you do that so beautifully. I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about how you got started in doing that. You talk about it a lot in the book, of course, but I'm wondering if there's stories you haven't brought to light or moments where you faced a conflict between sort of being that authentic version of you and maybe catering to what other people wanted to hear.
Yeah, that's actually a great question. I think because I started blogging way back in the day before there was any type of strategy for it, I was being myself out loud. whether people were watching or not. So that gave me the practice of not changing what that was. I think now, like today, if you were to start writing or start a blog or want to be a visible person, I think you come in with a little bit more strategy of like, here's how I'm going to create myself. But because I actually had none of that, I just started talking as I was. And I got used to it. I got used to it doing it publicly. And that was a gift. And I'm always telling people, even now, when I'm talking to people who are like, oh, I want to build this thing, I say, go back to that. Go back to the time before we all started doing strategic things to become these people and start talking just like you. I even tell my friends often, like, they see thought leaders out in public. There's a lot of thought leadership that can be templated. But I find the most compelling thought leaders to be the ones that are most true. Part of the reason why you stand out, Adam, is because in this space of a lot of people who are talking about thoughts and development and how we're moving through the world, you're showing vulnerability in even how you talk about yourself and how you talk about the approach to leadership, right? And I think even that, it doesn't even feel strategic, it feels real. So for me, conflicts that I've had over the years, if a brand came to me and said, hey, we want you to do a campaign with us, and that brand is paying, offers a lot of money, I have to now choose, okay, well, if this is a brand whose values are not aligned with mine, but the money is speaking, do I bend myself to take the money? And part of the reason why my career has probably taken some of the path that it's taken, where some of my journey has been longer, is because in those times I usually say, no, I'm good. I could use that money, but I'm not going to bend my integrity to match it. So I think all of that has built the platform I have now, the name that I have now, and what people kind of expect from me.
It's ironic in some ways that deliberately not doing what seems to be strategic turns out to be a better strategy in the long run, isn't it?
Yes. Like I even tell my team. So, a lot of times, I feel my company is a content company. We're a media company. And sometime last year I was like, we need an editorial calendar. We need to know what we're doing on Mondays, on Tuesdays, on Wednesdays. And we tried it for 2 weeks and it didn't work because I realized I couldn't template myself. I can't put myself in where Mondays I'm going to talk about motivational things and Tuesdays I'm going to talk about things that made me upset. If I'm not feeling it, I'm not feeling it. It lasted 2 weeks and we went, this might work for everybody else. It doesn't work for us. We still need to have the organic thing wrapped in there. So yeah, my strategy is having very little strategy. I'm just like, let's just follow what feels real to us. What is in the world? What is inspiring us that day? What's making us upset that day? What is the realization we have in a meeting that day? And let's do that. And if we don't post in 3 days, that's okay. We didn't fail.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here first. Book number three in a row on the New York Times bestseller list, as soon as she writes it, is going to be The Anti-Strategy Strategist by Luvvie Ajayi Jones.
You actually might be onto something, Adam, because I did come up with my idea for book number 3, and it's not dissimilar to what you just said.
Well, I look forward to hearing more about that when you're ready to share, but I can't wait to read whatever it is. So
yes.
I'm intrigued by something that you hinted at when, both when I was reading the book and in some of our conversation since, which is you've said that even you, right, I should just say, disclaimer, you're my archetype for what it means to be a professional troublemaker. Okay. I find myself thinking on a weekly basis, should I say this? Should I not? What would Luvvie do? Luvvie would say it. I need to say it. You have said that there are moments, though, when even you bite your tongue and have held back and maybe have succumbed to fear. Could you talk to us about a time where you wish you could get the redo and go back and actually say what you were silent on?
You know what's interesting is those times are not even public times. They're more personal times. If I'm having a discussion with a friend and I bite my tongue on something and I go, I should have said it to her. Or even my husband, will have an argument or a discussion about something and I'll realize I didn't say fully what was on my mind. And I think that actually speaks to the idea that, making trouble is not just going to be in the public sphere. It's not just on our Facebook pages, our Instagrams. How are we showing up in our day-to-day to our friends, to our partners, to our colleagues? And I think that's actually more important than the public troublemaking of it all. And even for me, yeah, there are times when I'm just like, should I say that? And when I don't say it, it stays with me until I say it. So I usually will go, okay, if I didn't say it in that moment, why? So if my why was I wanted to make sure I was being thoughtful and I felt like I was being too emotional in that time, I will circle back with clearer thoughts. I'm a fan of writing down stuff. If I have a tough conversation to have with somebody, I write it down. And I say, because I want to make sure that my emotions don't derail me from the conversation. So yeah, those times when I find myself quiet, I reflect, but then I write it down and I offer it up to the person and say, once you read it, let's have a fresh conversation. And then we can talk through what I really meant that I did not tell you.
So you actually give yourself the do-over before it's too late.
Yes. I think we should all give ourselves do-over. I think we're expecting that we should have the right words right then and there all the time. That's not realistic. You know, sometimes you will be flustered. Sometimes you are like in your head thinking through what you should say and the moment passes. When that's the case, do not be afraid to circle back. I'm really, I want us to release the pressure of, if not now, then I can't do it later. Release the pressure of, I have to get it right this moment. No, I will actually say, let me get back to you because I don't think I am thinking clearly right now, or I don't think I am hearing you well because I am upset. I'm gonna get back to you. And I think it puts a pin in the conversation and lets you know that this is not done. Expect the follow-up.
That is such good advice. I think if more people took it, one, we would be more honest with each other, but two, we would also just feel a lot less pressure and stress on a daily basis when we're trying to figure out, okay, how do I handle that difficult conversation or that dilemma? I wonder if you could help people do that in a bigger way. Okay. So as I hear you talk, I'm thinking about one of my all-time favorite Seinfeld episodes, the Jerk Store episode. Okay. I don't know if you remember that one, but I have not. The gist of it is that George is in a meeting and he brings this huge bucket of shrimp, and the guy at the other end of the table says, "Hey George, the ocean called. They're running out of shrimp." And everybody laughs, and George feels like an idiot. And he's on his way home from the meeting. He's like, "That's what I should have said." And the whole episode then is him trying to orchestrate a meeting to use the line that he missed, and of course it goes completely haywire. I want to see you do a spoof of that scene and coach George Costanza on how to keep the door open.
Oh, that's good.
In your spare time. Like I would watch this video over and over again, just watching you coach George. Okay, so he shows up at this meeting and he gets ridiculed by the person. Everybody's laughing and he's flustered. Yeah, what should he say? What should he do? Ooh, what should he do in that moment where he doesn't know what to say, what to do? One, he should be like, all right, you got jokes. I'll be back. My comeback is going to be late, but I'm going to be back. And I think also making light of the fact that you yourself, you're flustered, you know? So I'll tell George, instead of getting upset at the moment, be like, okay, I see what you did there, but don't worry. I'm going to note this because I'm going to come back with my own soon. And I think that honesty of being like, yo, I ain't got it right now is really necessary. You know, just be real about it as opposed to getting mad. And then, or if he gets mad, being like, I'm gonna leave y'all to it and walk out. So they know, oh, he's pissed. I think that's the first way to do it. I think that first option is so powerful, right? Just to own it and say, hey, I don't need to have a snappy comeback. Like you may be the master of on-demand witty repartee, but like I am gonna kill you slowly with humor. Correct. Oh, it's like it's gonna be me and you. I got you. So then they go, oh, okay, and then it buys you time. So when you find your real comeback and can use it again, somebody goes, oh, you're like, I told you. Okay, you get to have a I told you moment. Yeah, look, there's many times when I'd be like, that'd have been a better comeback. Shoot. Just file it away. Other times you might just need to file it away and remember that there might be another moment for you to use it, and then use it then. So good. And it's not even high pressure, right? Because if you don't come up with something, the guys always wonder, like, when's this going to happen? It's like when you were younger, you got in trouble and your parents didn't really punish you. They just were really chill about it. And then later on, you realize your iPad is missing. You're like, that's hypothetically. Yeah. And you go, ooh, well, we didn't have iPads then, but your favorite toy was missing. And you go, that's how they got me. Okay, that's fair. That's fair. I love that. This is so good. All right, we need you to rewrite Seinfeld. Put it on your to-do list. Okay, I want to shift gears a little bit and talk a little bit about something that's in the paperback that was not in the hardcover, which is you added a bonus chapter, which I was so excited about. It's called Slay the Dragon. It's a guide on truth telling. Why did you write it?
Because I wanted to be able to walk people through those moments when they want to say something, but it's hard. I feel like this would have been helpful to me, even just practically speaking, to be able to quantify my decision-making of truth telling. So I often talk about like, you ask yourself 3 questions, but how do you go from uncomfortable moments to speaking up? Like, what are the actual things you have to think through? What usually stops you? What are the considerations you might have, especially in high pressure situations where you're just like, I got to make quick decision. So I wrote the truth telling guide as a way for people to operate with a checklist and say, okay, the next time you're in the room, here's what you have to consider. You can do it quicker.
Well, I thought you did a wonderful job breaking down the major barriers that people run into when they hesitate to tell the truth. So you said fear of rejection is a big one. There's fear of punishment, fear of hurting other people's feelings, fear of getting it wrong, and fear of bad timing. And I looked at that list and said, wow, like fear of hurting other people's feelings, probably 95% of the time that I bite my tongue. That is why. What's your biggest barrier from that list?
It depends on what room I'm in. So if I'm talking to my partner, I'm not afraid of rejection or punishment. I'm usually afraid of hurting his feelings. If I'm in a room of people who I don't know, I might have fear of rejection in that room. If the stakes are really high, I might have a fear of punishment. So that changes depending on who you're in front of. And I think all of it is valid, all of it is fair, but you have to work your way through it. So it's important to know what you're afraid of in that time and whether it's likely to happen. And if it's likely to happen, you even measuring whether it's still worth it. If fear of punishment is what is at stake here because you're doing it in front of a group of 1,000 people, and if you fail, you might lose this account for your company and possibly get fired. What is most likely to happen? What is the worst case scenario of the fear that you have? And is that even possible? Is the best case scenario more likely? And just thinking through, I think just logically and practically, which one is most likely to happen? What am I willing to put on the line for it? And can I survive if the worst case scenario happens?
I want to talk a little bit about how you manage those fears. When I was thinking through them, I was thinking about some research that a colleague of mine, Alison Wood Brooks, did, where she showed that what most people do when they're afraid is they try to calm down. Like, I want to lower my anxiety level, and that way I should be much more comfortable, which rarely works. It's like trying to slam on the brakes when you're speeding down the freeway.
Correct.
She finds in her work that it's much more realistic to move to another intense emotion, like to go from fear to excitement, to say, okay, both are pretty high activation. They're strong emotions.
Yeah.
Both involve uncertainty. And whenever you're afraid, you're only focusing on the bad thing that might happen. But because of the uncertainty, there's also something good that might happen. And you ought to give that at least equal consideration, right? So my thought in a lot of these situations is, okay, yes, I'm afraid that I'm going to hurt someone's feelings, but I'm also excited that I might be able to help them. And I need to focus on the long run contribution I'm making, as opposed to the short-term pain that I'm creating. And sometimes that gets me over the hump. Sometimes it doesn't. What do you do? How do you manage your fear? Do you go to excitement? Do you go somewhere else?
You know what? That's actually a really great framing of what I think I do, which is ultimately, I'll think about the best case scenario. I'll think about, okay, I'm afraid of this apocalypse scenario happening, but what is the amazing game-changing scenario that could happen? So for example, I'll use my TED Talk as the thing. So when I was asked to do this TED Talk, I said no because I was afraid that I would show up there and I would bomb on that stage, and that all these powerful people in the room would make sure I never get booked for a speaking engagement again. That was my fear. Was it likely? No, but it was the reason why I said no. Now, the game-changing scenario is the talk could go viral. It could be the best lead magnet I've ever had, and it could make impact on millions of people around the world. I could absolutely take the fear and the anxiety here and let it tell me no, or or I can take the excitement of what's possible and say yes. So when I said yes, the best case scenario happened. Actually, what's interesting is in my head, what happened was actually not the best case scenario that I thought about. What actually happened was even better than what I thought about. I was just like, oh, I'll do a TED talk and I'll just end up on the TED stage, which would be great. To at least tell people I'm a TED speaker. That was what I considered my best case scenario. At no point did I think the thing was going to actually go viral or that it'd have impact on millions of people. So oftentimes I also think we are short-sighted in what we see as possible for the good, but we have all the imagination for all the terrible things that can happen. We will come up with 18 scenarios of that. Meanwhile, the best case scenario, we're like, yeah, the best case scenario is I'll just be on the stage and I get to say I'm a TED speaker.
I love the idea that the best case scenario might actually not be as good as what really happens, right? That there's a better than best. I had a very different image of where you would go on that best case scenario. I'm trying to put myself in your shoes.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, okay, like best case scenario, yeah, definitely this establishes me as a thought leader. Yeah. Worst case scenario, like, not the best talk I ever gave, but at least I introduced a bunch of white people to shea butter and its virtues. That's not where you went.
No, I went straight to, if I bomb on that stage, a lot of the people in that room are powerful people who make decisions on what speakers to have at other events. And they'll see me bomb and they'll go, yeah, she definitely can't come here. We definitely should not pay her for that. That was my word. So even as you notice, like I think our brains are so programmed for the negative. Life has programmed us for the negative that our imagination for the negative is so large. Meanwhile, for the positive, it's so small. So it actually, that process helps rewire my brain, to let me know that, yeah, there are times that I am not thinking big enough for myself. I am not being optimistic enough, and you just posted there was a tweet that we posted of yours recently about optimism, about the importance of optimism and hope in getting things done and how we basically need it in this world. And I think the world has beat out some of our optimism. That's how it shows up.
Yeah, I think that's so true. And at the same time, I'm also acutely aware of the fact that that's really easy for me to say as a white guy, right? Because I live in a more optimistic version of the world than people who don't benefit from those privileges. And I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about how you've experienced intersectionality through the lens of professional troublemaking. What's been more difficult as a woman of color? Are there strategies that you think are uniquely effective for you? And going beyond the personal, of course, what can we all do to build cultures and structures where troublemaking is welcomed from people who usually have the least power and the least status?
Yeah, I think it was important for me to write this book and to call myself a professional troublemaker because on the margins that I am on, being a woman, being Black, being Nigerian, being an immigrant, there's a lot of risk for me to be the person that I am. Every time that I speak up, I am putting myself on the line in a way that is not the same for you, for example. So it was important for me to use myself as an example because I say, if I can be on these margins and do these things, I'm hoping it inspires somebody else that it is possible for them to own who they are, to be on margins and still thrive in spite of it. I use myself as a model as a possibility. And I think how I've seen it show up in my work. I always feel like I have to overprove my worth. I always have to feel like I have to overprove the feed that I give. And I can't have an off day because if I have an off day, it's not considered an exception. It goes, oh, wow, I heard she was not good as a speaker or whatever it is. And in those spaces, it means I'm always having to show up as the best version of myself as much as possible with very little room for error. Now, the allyship of it all is I'm also fortunate to have people who I consider peers like you who have vouched for me when I'm not in the room. You've made important phone calls on my behalf that's instantly opened up doors because you believe in my work. And that has allowed me to leap forward in ways that I actually didn't realize. There's something I'm going to be announcing soon that I thought I would be doing in my 50s that Adam made a phone call about that actually opened the doors for. And I think that's actually a major form of trouble when we're talking about how we use our power in this world. in Love Nation, which is my app, there's 4 types of professional troublemakers, and everybody gets to self-select into the one that they think they are. They are heart helpers, people who use empathy as their superpower. There are the truth tellers, those who use the voice. They're the mind molders, the intellects. And then they're the bridge builders who use the power of collaboration. All of that is important in troublemaking. It is not just in challenging people in rooms. It's in how you are using your strength to make positive impacts in this world, to push things forward. And I think you are obviously a mind molder. You're constantly using intellect to push the way people are thinking and talking about the world and showing up in spaces, and I think that's just as powerful as a person who is telling people to do better. I think all of our different ways of troublemaking is valid. You just hear the truth tellers more. You hear our voices more, but the work that we do is hoping to support the mind molders and the heart helpers and the bridge builders. And I think it's important for us to show up in that way. And for the people who are in spaces where they can ensure that troublemakers are celebrated, I think it's actually welcoming it into the room and recognizing what they are. The person who's quiet all the time, hopefully you tell them, hey, I hope you know your voice matters. The person who is the truth teller, I hope you show up for them and, you back them up when they do use their voice. For the person who is the bridge builder, I'm hoping you use your intellect to make sure that you create the best type of collaboration projects possible. All of us are needed. All of us are needed, and all of our different powers are needed. One is not more important than the other, but I think when we all use those powers together is how we actually do shift worlds and make trouble.
Well, I think this announcement you're going to make, your secret is safe with me for now, but let me just say it's one of the things you were clearly born to do. And I didn't even have to make a phone call. Like I sent an email and I got capital letters responses back. So I just felt like I was doing them a favor. So don't think I did anything for you here. But I can't wait to see the impacts you have in that sphere. And
oh man,
I actually want to go back to something you said a couple of minutes ago, which really piqued my curiosity. It's a phrase you said, being on the margin, and that immediately jumped out at me because it sounds like a much more liberating reframe of being marginal or marginalized. And I wondered if you could double click on that for us and talk to us a little bit about how you think about being on a margin without being marginal.
Yes, I think being on the margins is, I think about all the different parts of our identities as like different roads. And being on the margin is like being on the road that's furthest away. Like you're kind of like on this deserted road and you're just standing there, but it does not make you less valid than the person who is over there. And for me, being a Black woman, I actually find pride on the margins that I'm standing on. I find that if I end up at the same room as the person who was standing way above there, I should be really proud that I somehow still made it there, no matter how far I had to travel. And for me, that actually infuses me with a lot of power. It infuses me with a lot of confidence, knowing that I've been able to do what I've done in spite of how far I've had to come. It lets me know that I'm capable of way more than I can ever think about. It lets me know that, one of the things that I say is like, let my helpers find me. And I'm very clear that whatever I want or aspire to have or do in this world, I'm probably one phone call away from it, of telling somebody, hey, I need this thing. Can you give me insight? And I think that's also the power of humbling myself and knowing that I'm not an expert at anything. I never call myself that, but I'm a forever student who's always seeking out knowledge and who has no qualms about saying, I actually don't know the answer. I want to ask somebody who knows better than me. I try to surround myself with people who know more than me. Because at no point will I say that I have reached my peak of learning, nor would I say I'm an expert at a lot of things. You know what? I'm a master of few. I'm a master of few and Jill of many. Like, I know many things about many things, and I know a lot of things about like 3. And those 3, I just need to focus on that, double down on that, and then seek out helpers for the rest.
Well, I like the sound of that, but if I can use your own words against you here, I think you are not owning your dopeness.
Oh, okay, okay.
I think you know a lot about more things than you let on, and it's all over this book, right? It's there's branding, there's organizational psychology and management. There's a huge amount of persuasion and influence. There's a lot about identity, right? Like we could keep going and going through topics. Wait a minute, how do you have so much deep insight about all of these things? So you should definitely stop claiming that you're a Jill of many trades. Only.
Listen, I lose perspective of how much. I don't know. I don't even know how. I'm actually not sure because I don't know. I think I'm a student of the world, of life, and I'm a Capricorn also, and I think we're known to be like old souls. They say like Capricorns are very serious people when they're born, and they get more playful as they grow older. That's probably it. Like I'm also the person, as much of a public facing person that I am, I'll walk in a room and I won't say much and I'll just observe. I love people watching. I love listening to people's conversations. I love like picking up and analyzing what people are like thinking, the subtext of stuff. It's why my college degree ended up being in psychology, because I actually really love the subject. And I think that has opened me up to absorbing and picking up more things about more than I realized I picked up.
That's a much, much better job owning your dopeness. I'll take it. The redo was a big success. And I'm going to resist the temptation to go on a rant about how astrological signs are a bunch of stereotypes about personality that don't have any grounding in reality. But
absolutely. Listen, we can go into all types of debates about that, Adam. Like, I think, you know what? It comes down to humans love segmenting ourselves. We love creating patterns for ourselves that we belong to. We love creating communities that we claim, which I actually think is what astrology does more than anything. I think it just gives you something else to claim. And because we're constantly on a search for community, that is where we're comfortable.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there. And I just want people to find communities for identities that have a basis in reality. That's all. That's all I ask. Let's go to, and this is, by the way, me not biting my tongue, which I may come to regret very quickly.
Adam, I'm here for this. I'm here for it. Look, I'm trying to get Adam. Look, by the end of 2022, we're going to have Adam out here for real. Just making big trouble. Just the biggest.
So I want to go to a lightning round now. And let me just give the audience a heads up. I'm going to be taking your questions in a minute. So please start putting them in the chat. I'll be monitoring that. And I'd love to ask Luvvie as many of them as we can get to. So Luvvie, first, lightning round. I have some basic ground rules for a lightning round, which come from my colleague Samir Nur Mohammed. First rule is you can only skip once. Second rule is it can be no longer than a sentence. Does that work for you?
Okay.
All right, here's the first one. I'm going to give you, actually, this is a set of them. I'm going to name some worlds, and you're going to tell me the name of a professional troublemaker in these worlds. So you ready?
Okay. Yep.
Okay, movies.
Samuel L. Jackson.
Such a good choice. TV.
Shonda Rhimes.
Hard to argue with your first two. You're on a roll. Travel.
He's no longer alive, but Steve Irwin.
Oh, great choice. I was thinking Anthony Bourdain.
Also, yes.
But I guess that's food too. So I don't know. Okay.
Yeah, that is food too.
Politics.
AOC.
I was sure you were going John Lewis there. You definitely surprised me.
I'm trying to do more alive people.
Fair. What about beauty or fashion? Which I'm probably not going to have heard of whoever you name. But try me.
Rihanna.
All right. I have heard of her. I don't know her last name, but I've heard of her. Fellow author, not present tonight.
Dang it, alive. Tarana Burke.
Yeah, me too. And then, okay, let's do a couple other lightning round questions before we go to the audience. One thing I would love to hear your lightning take on is something you rethought in 2021.
Ooh, probably that I don't know, that maybe humans are worth saving. I don't know. 2021.
I'm not letting you elaborate on that one. Okay, we'll keep moving. Tell me about your ideal dinner guest, dead or alive.
Is it a dinner party or just one?
Give us one of each.
Okay. Oh, who do I wish I'd met? Honestly, I would love to have met Maya Angelou and had dinner with her. That would have been incredible. Alive. You know, who have I been loving lately? Oh, so much TV. You know, I would do Oprah. It's the obvious choice, but I absolutely would love to have dinner with Oprah.
Nothing wrong with the obvious choice. Who doesn't love Oprah? Okay, next lightning round question is, if you were going to get someone else to write a book that you're never going to write but you want to read, is there a topic?
Oh, that's so good. Wow, that's a good one. Okay, the topic of it would probably be on this whole metaverse thing, like an easy to understand book on the metaverse, crypto, NFTs, where I won't walk away being like, what are you trying to say to me? I would never be the one to write that book, but I want to read that book for my own selfishness. Because I'm like, what is everybody talking about?
It's not going to be a book, right? It's going to be some kind of weird VR experience that doesn't even have
Right.
words in it. But
correct.
All right, finally, I think we can learn a lot about people by just knowing a little bit about their unusual loves and hates. So
Yes.
Two things I hate are chocolate and glitter. What's something you hate?
Wait, I got to ask you further questions about that. Glitter makes sense because glitter is in everything. I wore one glitter dress in like 2020, like 18, and I still find glitter in my house. Tell me more about this chocolate.
Just super taster, extra taste buds on my tongue, runs in my family. Can't stand chocolate, coffee, green vegetables, cilantro. Yeah.
So wait, so you have an extra intense taste buds?
Just for this like, bitter axis, nothing else.
Really? That is fascinating. Okay.
Yeah. What do you hate?
Oh gosh. Brussels sprouts?
It's disgusting.
Oh God, it's so gross to me. I've had it 1,000 times, 1,000 places, cooked, roasted, fried, baked. It's always terrible to me. And one other thing. I hate rodents.
Rodents.
Cannot do them. They freak me out. Roaches, rodents, all that whole family of tiny things and maybe not so tiny things. I can't do them. I become, you see me as like this bold, confident person. A rat shows up, I will create a fort out of the couch. I cannot do it. I will actually scream. So.
All right, I love it. On the flip side, something small that you love that people wouldn't know.
Oh, something small that I love.
And I'll give you one of mine.
Okay.
One of the things that I just think there should be more of in the world is like footy pajamas, like not just for kids, but adults too.
So
I'm also a big fan of sporks.
Sporks, really? I find sporks to be confusing because the fork is not long enough to really dig in, and it's a spoon. You can't. I will give you a tip on the footy pajamas. Have you heard of the company called One Piece?
No, I don't think I have, but I need to check it out.
Just go to their website, and they have a whole selection of onesies for adults in velvet, in sports, it's amazing.
I'm so glad I brought this up.
It is.
I did not know where I was going with this, but it was definitely worth it.
You and your wife, y'all will love it, and you can have matching ones with kids. Like, it's amazing.
Yes.
Oh, no.
Right. What do you love? Tell us what you love.
I love, I love smelling good. That's one. Like, I wake up and I layer multiple scents. I'm like, I need multiple scents on me because when I walk away, I want people to be like, wow. So it's almost like leaving your impact even when you're not there. And something else that I love, fruit snacks. Fruit snacks.
Cannot argue with that. Okay, this is fun.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to some audience questions. We have some brilliant questions from the audience, and they actually are organized around some common themes. So Let us begin with some career stuff.
Okay.
So what should you do when speaking your truth might get you fired, other than looking for another job?
I also want to ask you, how do you know you're going to get fired? I think we will often think speaking the truth is going to get us fired because, again, imagination to the utmost about what could go wrong. And I want you to actually think about it. If this company will fire me because I speak the truth, is this a company I want to invest all my time into, my time and my best ideas? Because if you will get fired simply from your thought about what is true and what is real, it's probably not a place that deserves your genius. Then two, if you know what, they will fire me and I need this job right now, fine. Survival is important, be quiet. But then I need to save all my money so I can make my exit. Either way, it will teach you something, whether that's a place you should stay, or it might let you know you're actually being kind of silly. You're not going to get fired for that. This place welcomes that. So hopefully you walk away knowing more than you did.
Excellent. That's such great advice. Next question. Can you tell us about a time when your professional troublemaking got you in real trouble?
Oh my God, yes. Okay, it's already in the book, but I trended on Twitter when I questioned an artist. I trended on Twitter for like 40 minutes. Like, as in like my name was the number 8th most tweeted thing in the United States for 40 minutes. And it like knocked me on my butt. Like I was shook it. And I think that moment actually quieted me for a minute. It had me doubting my voice because I was shell shocked. And what I said wasn't even crazy. So I think it allowed me though to reflect on my purpose in my work. And it taught me that I was bigger than I was. That in my imposter syndrome of it all, I still see myself as this Nigerian this Shigerian who's just behind the computer screen doing what she loves. Meanwhile, people were seeing me as like brand Luvvie, okay? So it was a moment of data collection. It was a moment of reflection, a moment of growth. It was necessary because it shook me to my core. And usually in those times when you fail like that, if you do the work you're supposed to, you will come out better for it. And that's what I did. And I think it made for one of the best lessons I ever had.
Okay, you actually just anticipated the next pair of questions, which is about imposter syndrome. We did a podcast episode together on this a few months ago last year. One question on this is, how do you fight imposter syndrome? And the other is, how do you know if you're sabotaging yourself?
Ooh. How do you fight imposter syndrome? You recognize it, first of all, because when you start naming it, you start going, that's what I'm feeling, which has power because it pauses you and actually has you start questioning whatever you're doubting, right? It'll have you saying, yeah, I see what I'm doing here is I'm wondering if I'm worthy of being in this room. And I want you to ask yourself, why would you not be worthy of being in this room? We've seen really unclever people make it. We've seen people who are not as credentialed or as smart or as experienced soar simply because they have the confidence, which means it's not that they're better than you, it's that they somehow got the gumption to believe that they belong there and earn this thing. And so why do you not have the gumption? So you have to push yourself past it in these moments and say, even if I don't know how I got there, I want to just make sure I give value. That's all I can do. So if I'm in a room where I don't understand how I got there, I'll go, well, now I just need to be somebody who brings value into this room. Whether or not I made it here by some magic, I'm already here. So now I got to do something about it. And, me and Adam actually talked about the fact that we could have met 6 years ago. And Adam's imposter syndrome kept him from saying yes to the room. Meanwhile, I was over in the room like, I came anyway, but I'm like, I don't know how I got here. This is crazy. So we all have it. Recognize that we all have it. It's not just you. And you just have to recognize it and then just push yourself past it.
Well, what I found helpful about discovering that is I will never again not be in the room because I'm afraid you're going to show up and then you're going to give me hell for not being there.
Yes.
I cannot let Luvvie down.
I'd be like, Adam, I saw your name on the list. Why are you not here?
That's my biggest fear, honestly, right there. Okay, couple more questions in a similar realm. One is, how do you know what type of troublemaker you are?
Ask yourself what your superpower is. So I actually invite anybody who's here to join us in Love Nation. And Love Nation is my community where I want to empower people to be more troublemakers and affirm them. So the four troublemakers, the four types of troublemakers, like I said earlier, I'm going to slow down so you recognize there are the truth tellers. And you are a truth teller if you use your voice, if your superpower is using your words to move people in that way. Then there are the bridge builders. They're the people who can collaborate with anybody. It doesn't matter if they disagree with somebody. They know how to work with other people to accomplish a goal. That is their superpower. There are the heart helpers. They're the people who use empathy and listening and emotion to connect with people and to move folks. So they often make great therapists, great counselors, great doulas. And then there are the mind molders, the people who use their intellect to move people, who are constantly learning. Now, you're going to be more than one of these things, but one is dominant. So I'm a truth teller who is also a mind molder, but the truth teller dominates the mind molder. So yeah, mine is my voice and my intellect. So yeah, figure out which one you are, and then just know that it is valid. Use it in whatever space you're in, personally or privately. I mean, personally or professionally. And I think you'd be standing more in your integrity.
I think we need a quiz.
Yes, I actually have my team developing a quiz to help people figure out which one they are. So that is coming. That is coming.
Awesome. I'm glad to hear it. Okay. Next question is it worth telling someone you work with professionally that they're stabbing you in the back, or should you just turn away?
In that moment, I always ask, what is the pro and the con of your silence? What is the pro and the con of you speaking up? You know, what can happen if you continue to stay silent? Does that mean that you can no longer trust this person and you secretly no longer lean on them for important tasks? So you take on more, which stresses you out? Does it mean in your silence, your resentment builds up to you actually being kind of rude to them in a meeting just because you're angry at this person doing this to you? Does your action, does your voice mean the person is going to have their feelings hurt? It frees you out at work. What is the thing that feels most honorable to you? For me, I don't know how to not say it. Like, it will bother me so much that it will show up on me. I don't have a poker face. I don't have a poker face at all. So even if I try to act like I'm not upset, it will show up. So I have to say it just to like clear it out, because think about it like this: create the conflict so you can get to reconciliation. Every time, every day that you delay conflict created because you're not speaking up, you are delaying reconciliation and resolution. If you want to get to resolution, say it and then work through it.
Powerful. All right. Next set of questions have to do with your process.
Yeah.
So one question is, how do you get started with a book?
Ooh. Okay. So I actually plan on doing a book publishing course because I realized that I really do want to help people figure out the book thing. But Adam, I don't know what your process is, but I realized that my books usually start with one thing, a thesis statement. When it's time for me to write a book, I have to be able to define that book. What do I want to say? So what is the thesis statement of my book? If I don't have one, I don't have a book, because then you can write 1,000 things. The thing about a book is you can make it hyper-focused or it can be everywhere. And I think the best books are the ones that clearly are saying one thing, and every piece of the book is supporting it. So my thesis statement for I'm Judging You was, we are all ridiculous as human beings and we need to do better. That is, every piece of the book supports that. And then for a professional troublemaker, that thesis statement is, for us to live the audacious lives that we want to live, we're going to have to do scary things. So every piece of the book is following that. So for you to start a book, know the one thing you want to say.
I'm so glad that you raised that, because I think one of the big misconceptions that people have about writing books is, I need a topic. No, you don't need a topic. You need an insight. You need an idea, which is your point about the thesis.
Yep. So see, aligned.
Excellent. Okay, flipping that around, how often do you read and what are you reading?
I read a lot of articles. I don't read as many books as I should, as I used to actually, because I get so busy. Like I actually have like 7 books that I'm supposed to blurb right now. I still haven't picked up. So yeah, but I'm picking up, I'm reading constantly though. I'm like reading articles, I'm reading like other people's insights, I'm reading people's newsletters. I subscribe to a bunch of newsletters from people whose thoughts I love. So yeah, I'm reading that. And then I have a stack of books that's by my nightstand that I'll pick up. I'm a speed reader, fun fact. I'm a speed reader, so I can read really quickly and finish a book, but it's been a minute since I read my last book. I think probably September.
What about speaking? At least one person wants to know, and I suspect there are others too. How did you first get invited to be on stages?
My first speaking engagement was at the job I was laid off at. I got laid off my marketing coordinator job April 2011. 2011. And May 2011, they had me come and do a speaking engagement about Twitter. They couldn't afford me as a full-time person, but they had me come in to do this workshop. And then
that is the most Luvvie thing I've ever heard right there. Like, I got fired, but I was still so good that they wanted me to come back and teach them something.
That is actual valid. That is valid. Yes.
It's
That's
amazing.
it. That's it.
May we all be fired with that landing. Next question is, when you're preparing for the next level of something, whether it's, you're getting on a bigger stage or you're writing the next book or, you're taking your company to the next level, how do you prepare for that and position yourself?
I brainstorm everything I need. I brainstorm what I feel like I'm missing for that next level. And I put it somewhere because I realize I need to use this as my checklist to get those things before next level comes or as it comes. If I don't write something down, it freaks me out. I realize I'm not prepared. So whether it's book, whether it's speaking, whatever it is, I'll go, here's what I feel like I am lacking right now. I'm lacking the person that's going to manage this thing. I'm lacking this SOP. So I'm constantly having these, what are my needs conversations with myself.
Well, again, you've seen the next question coming. One person wants to know, how do you create goals, especially if you tend to procrastinate? And I just have to editorialize for a second and say, if you are a true procrastinator, it's not the creating the goals that's the problem. It is the following through on them in a timely manner. So Luvvie, tell us about that.
You just did a quote about that we posted yesterday about how procrastination is not about laziness. Like you are really just doubting, you have fears and that's stopping you from doing it. So, and that's actually valid. I mean, it becomes laziness if you're like, yes, I realize I'm procrastinating. Yes, I know my fear. I'm still not going to do it. Like, if it can become that if you do it for so long, but ultimately it still goes back to the same thing. Fear is at the thing. How do I procrastinate? I'm procrastinating constantly. I also think my procrastination comes down to feeling overwhelmed. So the self-sabotage of it will be where I'm like, yes, I know I had this deadline. And then I'll spend 2 hours scrolling on Instagram, knowing I'm supposed to be writing this thing or creating this thing. But you usually know when it's happening and you know what you're doing. That's the thing. We all know when we're doing it, but then you just do it anyway.
Okay, final question from the audience, which I think is a wonderful one to land on, is, Luvvie, when did you realize that you were a brand that people needed in their lives?
I didn't make that realization or that decision. I did not. I was not like, yes, I am this person. I think it was the plan all. I don't know how it happened. Honestly, I tell people that I'm like a 18-year overnight success. Like I was just on the road and writing my thing and doing my thing. And then next thing I know, more and more people are listening to me. And next thing I know, I'm getting these accolades and I'm like, how? So I don't know when I realized it. Maybe when I trended on Twitter. Maybe me trending on Twitter is what told me, girl, you're a big deal. Okay, maybe that's it. I don't know. And I think, there are times when I actually reflect on the fact that, yeah, I can text some of my favorite thinkers. And I'm like, that's wild. That is wild to me because I don't know. I never imagined my career to be what it was. Back to that whole best case scenario thing, that imagination we don't have. The life that I live now and the way my career has taken its own path is a best case scenario that I never had. Cause I just, how would you even come up with that just by yourself when you were supposed to be a doctor? You just, no, so whenever people see me, I'm like, listen, this was not strategic. This whole situation, I wasn't plotting like, okay, I'm going to do this thing and this thing will happen and this other thing will happen from there. It's all been a magical accident from me simply honoring what felt real and compelling, what felt true, and what felt like I was using my gift. So I just know that I will continue to honor my gift, and I will let what happen happen, because clearly the plan is better than I can come up with, because my imagination is not this good.
Well, that is beautiful. Let me just, as we wrap up here, say a few things. The first one is a big thanks to Ginny and Andersons for hosting us. The second is a big thanks to the audience, to all of you for coming, for engaging, for making the chat absolutely fun and fascinating to read, and also for asking great questions. And especially, Luvvie, I want to thank you for this outstanding, incredibly important book that everyone needs to read. I think that if in the metaverse there were a Luvvie bot, it would be wisdom on demand. So I could put in any question or any topic, and then you would have something, boom, there it is. That's exactly what I needed to know and apply to my life. And knowing you, Luvvie, has made my life better. Your work makes the world better. I just want to thank you so much and give you the floor if there's anything you want to say to close.
Adam, thank you for always saying yes. And I think this last year, one of the highlights of my year is the fact that we connected, and you are one of my favorite thinkers. So yeah, sometimes I'm like, I can text Adam Grant. That's crazy. It is freaking wild. And, I think you have also you've modeled to me what's possible to be an ally. You've been a friend in that way. And I'm just so thankful that you say yes, that you will be like, okay, what do you want to do next? Got it. And that is a big deal, because I understand how important it is for us to put our names on the line, and you constantly say yes. So I do not take that for granted. And I am such deep respect for your work. And Adam, I feel like there's something you and I are going to do together that I'm like,
I feel like if you guys tease this one more time, we're going to have to get a scoop here. You've got us on the edge of our seats.
I'm such a Luvvie fan. We need to find something to do together for sure. But in the meantime, doing these events is such a highlight for me. And just, again, thanks to both of you.
Absolutely. I was saying in the chat, Luvvie, I feel like we all need a little Luvvie on our shoulder. So if your team could get on like a little plush or like a little robot in the metaverse that would just tell us like, why aren't you in that room? Like get your butt in that room, go use your genius, all the time. Yes. That would be fantastic. Before we let you both go, is there anything that you can share with us that either of you are working on individually that we can look forward to in the future? We need hope for 2022, guys. We need hope.
I have nothing. This is Luvvie's event. Luvvie, it's all yours.
Okay. I mean, I'm just inviting everybody to come into Love Nation, because Love Nation is where I'm usually hanging out and giving them this type of, information. But I do think there's always something I'm working on, and more of that to come, though. As long as y'all are signed up for my newsletters, you'll find out that. But we have a lot going on, like 2022. Yeah, this is 2022. Oh, the one thing I will say is Rising Troublemaker, the young edition of Professional Troublemaker, comes out in May, and it's actually available for pre-order now. So if you have teenagers, anybody between the ages of 12 to 17, it'll be perfect for them. And it's to really make sure that we infuse this type of courage in our young people, so they don't have to be 35 unlearning a bunch of terrible messages that they've heard.
Ooh, I have a link for that. I can drop in the chat as soon as my internet decides to work properly here. That is super exciting. I saw where you were crowdsourcing titles for that, title suggestions. Mm-hmm. Fantastic. I'm so excited.
The other title was going to be Generation Troublemaker, but we fell on Rising Troublemaker.
Yeah, no, I love it. Well, I just dropped that link in the chat. If you'd like to pre-order it from Andersons, we would love to get that to you. And then, there's the link for Love Nation. And you guys will all be hearing more about that soon, since you purchased a ticket to this event. And you're also going to be getting your books very soon. So you'll get an email from us tomorrow morning via Event Combo as soon as I get myself into the basement of the bookstore where I work. And we'll get those divvied up and out to you, so they'll be ready and you can start getting your Troublemaker on. But thank you both so much for being here. We really appreciate it. All of you who joined us and giving us your time this night, we appreciate it. Best everybody, stay healthy out there. And we hope to see you all in person soon as we can.
Thank you all.
All right. Thanks. Good night, everyone.